What about cannabinoids for Tourette syndrome and other tic disorders? That's a great question, and there's a lot more data than I realized on this question. So we're going to go over a really helpful case report, but you can see all the data on this topic on the page I just made on the CVResearch.info site. I'm Lex Pelger. I do canna education for CV Sciences, the makers of Plus CBD, with excellent CBD, THC, CBDA, and PEA products, which will be relevant if you get to the end of this video. I'm going to start with this strong, thoughtful, and quite positive case report from a doctor I actually met through my Cannabinoids and the People newsletter. But first, a word of caution. I met a cannabis underground healer out west, and they were working with a specific patient, and they tried all manners of cannabinoids and all combinations at high levels, and it never did enough to moderate their tics to the point that they thought it worth continuing. The DSM lists 3 types of tic disorders, and the results will be different for everyone. It will take experimentation to find the combinations that work best for you, which is why we're going over a lot of case reports today. Some people will be non-responders, though on the road, I heard a lot of positive stories from a lot of people. For background, nobody really knows what causes Tourette syndrome. It seems to be a combination of genetics and environment, such as stress. It does seem to involve the basal ganglia, movement part of the brain, similar to Parkinson's and Huntington's disease, and the typical first-line treatments are antipsychotics and dopamine antagonists. So in this case report, Dr. Newton's son developed tics during the pandemic, maybe from the stress of it. They started with the usuals like clonidine and risperidone, but they didn't help that much with tics, and they had a lot of negative side effects, including extreme weight gain. She did her research and decided to start integrating cannabinoid-based medicines, and within 2 months, they had stopped the other drugs and used cannabinoids alone. When she reviewed the literature, she found that patients tend to prefer full plant medicines instead of nabiximols, which are a pharmaceutical 1-to-1 of THC and CBD, or dronabinol, which is just synthetic THC all by itself, which can be like a kick in the face by a horse, some patients say. There's also work being done on a pharmaceutical called THX-110, which was a combination of 10 milligrams of THC and 800 milligrams of PEA, CV Sciences relief products. They settled on CBD as their primary treatment. It helped moderately with tic severity, but especially helped with anxiety on focus, and they found the sweet spot to be 40 milligrams twice a day. For acute flare-ups of symptoms, they had a CBD puffer that was an inhaler for CBD, basically. Also, after she saw that Aleve helped her son with his tics, and knowing that it was a COX-2 inhibitor like CBD acid, she decided to start trying CBD acid. Unfortunately, it wasn't really available in Canada where she was, but when they were in Florida for a while, they were taking CBD acid, and it helped quite effectively for tic severity, though it wasn't as strong as CBD for the calming effect. They found 10 to 15 milligrams of CBD acid to be the sweet spot for treatment. They were reluctant to use THC as a treatment. As you can imagine, he was quite young, but they found 2.5 milligrams of THC with 5 milligrams of CBD caused no noticeable impairments, but it didn't help that much with tic effects. 5 milligrams started to help with tics, but they had some noticeable impairment then, especially heavy eyes and lethargic. So they do use that during a tic crisis, but that's usually at night, and that's when they would use it. So thanks to Dr. Newton for this excellent write-up. This is the first place I would go because she also has an excellent bibliography on this article. Let's go over the rest of these studies in reverse chronological order, and I can't even cover half of them here, but I'm going to cover the ones that seem like they have helpful info for us. This is the first study I know. It was a survey, and the majority of people with Tourette syndrome reported that cannabis helped them with their tic severity. Then this survey found that cannabis also helped the related OCD symptoms. This early case report showed that THC combined well with a dopamine receptor antagonist treatment. This clinical trial was a good piece of evidence because it showed that the level of cannabinoid metabolites in the blood was related to the reduction of tic severity. Since Tourette syndrome doesn't affect someone's intellectual capabilities, it was good to see this study where THC had no effect on someone's neuropsychological performance. Here is a positive clinical report using Sativex. 10 milligrams of THC, 10 milligrams of CBD helped this person out. This is a case report of a teenager helped by vaporized cannabis, which is very effective because it's a very fast way to get cannabinoids into your system. This case report was interesting because the antipsychotics didn't work and THC by itself didn't work, but once you added the CBD to the THC, it started to help. Sometimes it's not only the tic severity. In this case, cannabis also helped to improve sleep and to improve mood. Interestingly, they did a genome-wide association study and found that if you have a certain variant of your CB1 receptor, you might be more liable to have Tourette syndrome. Relatedly, they tapped the spinal fluid of people with Tourette syndrome, and they found that they had higher levels of anandamide, PEA, and 2-AG, and that the levels of 2-AG were correlated to the tic severity. which makes this study odd because they use an MAGL inhibitor. That's the enzyme that breaks down 2-HG. So you make that enzyme less strong and your 2-HG levels go up. But somehow that MAGL inhibitor helped in this small phase 1 trial. And a big one that makes me hope you watch this long. It's a combination of 10 milligrams of THC and 800 milligrams of PEA, which is found in our Relief product. And that combination helped people in this phase 2 trial. I think PEA is going to be the next big cannabinoid because there's so much evidence there, and this is just one more case where it appears helpful. And not all the data is positive. This was a real-world setting test of cannabis, and it didn't really help with tic severity, but it did help with OCD, anxiety, employment status, and general quality of life. And lastly, this was a study in mice, but acupuncture helped in a mouse model of Tourette syndrome via the CB1 receptor. So all this to say, the cannabinoids are worth trying for Tourette syndrome and tic disorders, though it might be complicated. If you have any advice on what worked for you, we would love to hear it in the comments.